If a monster customer comes into your store and starts making demands, would you give them exactly what they're asking for? We'll get to that in a bit, but first, a story from Why So Sad It's the Truth, calling an audible. A friend of mine I've known for decades, James, has a son Roy with his ex Lisa. Lisa has a new live-in boyfriend David with one of his own kids and one on the way. Although not blood related, Roy is my nephew. James has shared custody with Lisa as primary. Roy is 17, a year ahead in school, and a straight-A student. After obtaining his driver's license, Lisa agreed he can work for me at my company. James bought Roy a used car to drive to school and work. The kid really hasn't come into the hangout life yet. Recently, it's been brought to my and James's attention that David's been driving the car and allowing his 18-year-old son to drive it as well. This is against the agreement for the car and has been causing Roy to have to find or wait for rides to school or work. James confronted Lisa and David, which caused a huge fight and legal threats on both sides. James and Roy installed a tracker on the car after telling David that only Roy can drive the car and anyone else who takes it will be arrested, as the car is still in James's name. David took the car after this and was stopped and arrested for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. David retaliated by convincing Lisa that Roy shouldn't be able to drive the car unless they're in the car or he's running an errand for them. The courts agreed that this is within their rights on the weeks mom has with him. Lisa's aware that he needs to drive while working, but still won't let him use the car but has him driving the other kids to their events. So after talking to Roy and James, we developed a plan. James took the car back. I own a rental house not too far from Lisa's. Since it's currently used for short-term rentals, I moved a car I had wrapped for my company to the house and gave the key and garage code to Roy. Roy currently picks up the car on the way to school and after school takes it for work. As the car's wrapped with logos, I pay him for driving to school and school events and to drop the car off on the way home. Now David has to fix his schedule to deal with trekking his kids back and forth, and Roy can get where he needs to. Roy's happy he can work more and no longer has to be the family's unpaid Uber. The main takeaway I get from this story is I'm sure David's gonna have a real great relationship with their stepfather and mom once they get even more independence down the road. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy awesome stories of compliance, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is from Unorthodox 474. I have to account for all my time? Okay. So this one isn't for work, but school, and a dispute I had with an instructor who was looking for a way to shaft my GPA. I'd proven him wrong in front of witnesses and he was looking for payback. I was a student gunsmith at the Colorado School of Trades when this happened, and a part of the last section of the program was working on a minimum number of customer-supplied guns. Kind of like how salon colleges offer discount hair services to real customers so that students can get some experience. I'd angered the instructor for that department by protesting when he dinged me a grade point for failing to document the size of the gas port on a gun that didn't have one, a Benelli inertia-driven shotgun, and then proved in front of witnesses that he was wrong about how the gun worked and forced him to change my grade. After that, he looked for every way he could to shaft me, and I could see his big play coming in the form of the school's very strict rules about how carefully we had to document how our time was spent, which would have allowed him to ding me for every unaccounted for minute, of which I was sure I had a few over the months. Enter malicious compliance. Early on in the section, it was called Design and Function or DNF, I had been assigned an old Arisaka rifle to clean, and the screws were seized so thoroughly that I was afraid I'd strip them out if I wrenched them too hard. So I'd applied penetrating oil and put it in my locker, and then moved on to other guns while I waited for the oil to work its magic. Once I realized what the instructor had planned for me, I simply forgot to get that gun back out of my locker and left it in there for months while I worked on other guns, letting it sit there until I was nearly finished with the section. Then, when I was near the end and the instructor started smirking and asking me how well my time was accounted for, I produced this crusty beast from my locker along with the timesheet for it, on which I'd accounted for every spare minute of my time in the section that wasn't on the other sheets, and claimed it was all spent on this thing. And told him I was sorry, but I just couldn't get the screws out, and I'd take the F on that one gun out of the 35 I'd worked on as part of the curriculum. The look on his face as he read the paperwork and realized what I'd done was pretty priceless. I think he just about tore a hole in the final grade sheet writing that my time was in perfect order, and he didn't say another word to me the whole time I remained in school. I love the bait technique OP used here. I love the fact that they knew this guy was looking for anything, so they created something, and that something was the egg that OP ended up throwing back in their face at the very end. This next story is from Humble Human Bob. Don't make that new order for the large Canadian. Yesterday, I was looking for something easy for dinner and phoned the nearest pizza from a small building. I ordered a large Canadian pizza for pickup, and the person on the phone confirmed the location and my phone before telling me I could pick it up in 30 minutes. At no point was price mentioned in this exchange. I had specifically ordered this because I was looking at the website and saw they had a large banner on their site, which stated they specifically had types of large pizzas for $16.99. On arrival at the red-roofed pizza from a small building location, I went inside to pick it up. The server said, "That'll be $27.67. I said, "I'm sorry, I thought your website mentions this large pizza for $16.99. The server says, "Sorry, we don't offer that price over the phone. It's online only." Me, planning my compliance, said, "I'm sorry, you're telling me that if I call in my pizza, it's almost double the cost as ordering online?" They say, "Sorry, the details are on the poster behind you, and you can see the small print in the corner that says online only." The details were, as promised, in very small print on a very large poster. Throughout this, she'd been holding the pizza out towards me, waiting for me to take it after paying. I admit I could have been a bit more polite, but I was a bit hangry and grumpy and just wanted to eat my pizza for the advertised price. I turned abruptly away and left her with the pizza. I walked back to the waiting area and pulled up my phone, placing an order online for the same pizza I had ordered over the phone. I refused to make eye contact, but watched her quizzically looking at me in my peripheral vision, all the while holding my pizza. She turned to put it down, but glanced at her computer, presumably seeing the notification for the same order, under the same name with the same cell phone number. She looked from her screen to me, where I sat looking at my phone, watching her out of the corner of my eye. I'd like to think this was our pizza standoff, our duel of wits, our respective slices of stubbornness. After a few drawn-out seconds, she called me back up. She said, "Okay, you can pay for your pizza now. The total comes to $17.83. I paid the $17 in cash, and they handed me the same pizza that they'd been holding the whole time. The pepperoni on the pizza, icing on the cake, was hearing them call into the kitchen just before I walked out. "Don't make that new order for the large Canadian." I'm American and I'm not that large, thank you." You'd expect a little bit better service from red-roofed pizza from a small building location. Our next story is from Jafivial. Little Pig Pieces. This malicious compliance is both very lighthearted and somewhat silly. It took place several years back when I worked in a corporation-owned restaurant. While it wasn't my malicious compliance, I was the trigger for it and the only one there to see the results. First, a little bit of necessary background in case you haven't worked in food service or for a large corporation. For restaurants, food quality, safe handling of products, tools, chemicals, cleanliness, and labels are all very important. If you don't want people to get sick or injured, especially in an environment that's always somehow too small, very hot, very loud, slippery, and full of medieval-era siege repellent, such as hot oil, fire, boiling water, and 9-inch blades, labels are especially important because the person using the item isn't always the same as the one who portioned it out for service. And if not properly labeled, you'd have no way to ensure it was fresh enough to serve safely. Corporate kitchens take this even further and employ third-party auditors for health and safety to ensure everyone is following the standards across all their chains. This isn't a bad thing, although sometimes their standards clash badly with reality. For example, shelled hard-boiled eggs in a brine once opened have a best before date that lasts for a year. The auditors, however, decided that once the pail was opened, they're only good for a single week. There was also no leeway on labeling. Even if the product packaging contained all of the information you would put on a label, it still required a label. This wasn't unreasonable because a standardized label is easier to read, but for very high usage items, where you could go through several packages a day, it could become difficult to ensure this happened, especially during rushes. One of these items is bacon bits, which brings us to our malicious compliance. We had been audited and failed because 3 items were found in one of the fridges that were not properly labeled because, and I quote, "The labels must clearly state the name of the product such that anyone can identify it. It must have the day it was opened/made and the day it expires, and the labeler must print their name." 2 of the labels did not have a labeler's name, and 1 item didn't have the name of the product. The product without a name? Bacon bits. I was put in charge of making sure we passed our next audit, and I took it very seriously. Talking to the others, finding out where pain points and following procedure occurred, and ensuring absolutely everyone got a refresher on the standards. It mostly went well and everyone was getting into the groove, but there was another container of bacon bits missing its name. There were only 2 of us working at the time, so after the lunch rush, I pulled the Bacon Bandit aside to have a heart-to-heart. I said, "Hey Bacon Bandit, I know we were just busy, but you gotta put the name on the bacon bits." They said, "Really? They're used up before the end of the day. There's no way to confuse them with another product. They last for a month. And we just don't have time during 15 minutes, or it's free lunch if we want to get the food out on time." I said, "I understand the reasons why it happened. You're not getting in trouble for this, but the audits can shut us down. And even though it feels unnecessary, labels are protection for both the customers and the company. Everybody has to be on board with this to make it work. And if we can't even label bacon bits, the area manager is going to question why we have the highest paid kitchen staff at our location. Can I count on you to make sure the bacon bits are labeled?" The Bacon Bandit with a big sigh says, "Yeah, I'll do it, but it's still dumb and wastes a lot of time." I say thank you. I appreciate it. A few days later, it's a particularly soggy day, and lo and behold, the auditor shows up for their surprise inspection right in the middle of the lunch rush. I'm by myself on the line, so I'm only able to half keep tabs on them while they're putting out orders. They seem happy with things so far, and just as the lunch rush is ending, they enter the main fridge where dwells the bacon bits. The auditor's in there for a long time, way more time than normal, and when they come out of the fridge, they're grinning ear to ear. Well, that's weird, I think. Then they get our general manager and take them back into the fridge, and now I'm thinking, oh, that can't be a good sign. When they come out, they're both laughing and I'm completely confused. They go into the office to discuss the results of the audit, and I go into the fridge to try and see if I can figure out what's going on. I go in and everything is labeled, everything is FIFO'd, first in, first out, and everything's stacked in food safe order. Then I see it. The bacon bits sitting proudly on its shelf in a container clearly labeled for the world to see, mother freaking little pig pieces. Yesterday's date, expiry, Bacon Bandit. We passed the audit with 100% because little pig pieces, and I quote, clearly stated the name of the product such that anyone can identify it. I'm just glad that this auditor had a good sense of humor about it. I could imagine that some with a stick up their butt that's looking to catch somebody could give you some hard time about, oh, well, that's not an accurate name. I'm just glad we could all laugh at this situation. And our final story of the day is from Nameless and Quiet. But you said you didn't want my help, Karen. I'm a bridal consultant at a very popular bridal salon in my town. I have many years of experience and love what I do. Most of the bridal gowns in my shop are special order, meaning they must be ordered before they're made by the designer, and lead times can be anywhere from 4 weeks to 8.5 months. Not everyone knows this when they come shopping for a gown. That's the whole point of me being there. I make sure we can get the dress in time, any desired customizations or alterations are possible, and that the price is within the bride's budget. Well, when this particular bride and her mother stepped into the store, they went immediately to the racks and started ripping through the neatly hung gowns. I introduced myself, explaining that I would be their consultant for the appointment. This bride had a fairly short engagement, around 4.5 months, and I knew that only some of the gowns would be available in time. As I tried to explain to her and her mother the process, she sharply cut me off and told me to just let us shop and leave us alone. I was stunned to be spoken to so rudely, so I did as I was told. Even when I saw them looking at dresses twice her budget that wouldn't arrive until months after her wedding, I never took any of the gowns back to a dressing room or asked her if she'd like to actually try them on. Even after they stood by for a while, clearly waiting for me to take her back to the dressing rooms, I just continued on with my other work as if they didn't exist. Eventually, they realized that I had no intentions of acknowledging or helping them in any way, and they left without getting to try on any gowns. The owner asked me about it after they left, and I told her the whole story. She laughed and said, "Good for you." Honestly, I'm impressed that the owner said good for you. Like, even if these customers are the worst jerks of worst jerks, these gowns obviously aren't cheap. And I imagine a lot of owners, even when being treated that way, would expect their employees to grin and bear it just to try and make that sale. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another awesome compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.